Mike McKay.
I like it. All right, everyone. Welcome to the Real Estate Game Changers Show. I'm your host, Mike McKay, based in the Jacksonville, Florida market. And each and every week, we do this show with people who are changing the game of real estate all over the country. And guys, this is a live show. So please make sure that if you do have any questions, throw them in the comments for our guests to answer. For anyone in the Jacksonville, Florida market or thinking about getting into it, feel free to reach out to us if you need any help on anything. We still are very actively buying in Jacksonville, especially mobile homes on land. If anyone has those kind of deals, we're flipping a couple of those right now and really looking to focus on that this coming year. So our guest for this week is a friend of mine from up in New York. So Michael Chang, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Mike. I'm very excited to be on your show. I've been watching on Facebook, and I'm glad to be on here with you.
Awesome, man. So for the people who don't know you, who are watching, um, how did you get started in the real estate business, and how did that kind of lead you to where you are today?
That's a great question. So my background is in traditional finance. I was an investment banker in New York. I was an M&A banker at Citi and Merrill. Did that for 10 years, and we were looking for ways to my girlfriend at the time and now wife. We're looking at ways to invest and grow our net worth. We started with a few single family rentals, and then we kind of stumbled backwards into Airbnb short term rentals. And once we kind of discovered the power of that platform, we kind of decided to go all in on that in 2017. So we've been working on that business for the last 6 years. We have 31 properties in Philadelphia and in Tennessee. And we continue to, Airbnb is like our core strategy. So we use a couple of different strategies to continue to grow that. And yeah, I'm excited you were there in the very beginning of our journey. So you're like one of my favorite people. So I love, thank you for having me.
Yeah, man. So you said different strategies. So for people who aren't familiar with short-term rentals, like what do you mean by different strategies?
So there are three main strategies in short-term rentals. One, you can buy them, right? So kind of traditionally buy a property, turn it into an Airbnb, and then run it, right? The second strategy is what's called rental arbitrage, and what that means is you basically rent instead of buy a property, and then you rent it out on for short-term rentals with the landlord's permission. So you rent it out on Airbnb, Booking.com, Expedia, Verbo, and you make the spread between what you make on the revenue versus the rent and the expenses that you're paying your landlord. And lastly, there's a strategy called co-hosting, which is really just another word for property management. So it's a way for someone to do Airbnb, right? To run Airbnbs without actually putting any money in. They're just kind of doing the work, and then they get a percent of the revenue, generally 12 to 20% from the owner of the property. So those are the three kind of key strategies that folks use. We started with rental arbitrage, and then once we got more comfortable with the model, then we started buying. So we have 25 Airbnb arbitrage units, and then we own 6 properties.
Gotcha. And for people like comparing those two strategies, like rental arbitrage versus like owning the property,
Yeah.
like what are the upsides and the downsides of each one in your opinion?
What are upsides and downsides? So, you know, it's always a balance, right? Of like risk and reward, right? It's kind of that spectrum. Co-hosting is the lowest risk, right? You have no capital really in your time, right? And then your upside's kind of capped, right? You're going to make percentage of revenue, and
Yeah.
then rent arbitrage, you're responsible for the rent, right? And then you're for the rent, the expenses, and furnishing a property, right? But your upside's more is unlimited on the amount of revenue that you can make. If you kill it, then all that profit flows to you, right? You don't have to share it with anyone. And then when you buy, right, you've taken a lot of risk, right? Because you're putting a down payment. You own the house, or the property. You have the mortgage, your down payment. You have to furnish it, but you get a lot of upside, right? The property will appreciate or should appreciate, and you'll make the money from the Airbnb, right? But if it doesn't work out, obviously, then you just have to pay the mortgage. You just have to pay you're out the down payment. If you're doing rent arbitrage, you just got to pay the rent and the utilities. Co-hosting, that's where it's no risk, right? Then it's that risk is on the owner. So that's kind of the spectrum. So just depending on kind of where you are in your journey, like what makes the most sense for you.
Yeah. And like, how do you guys decide whether it's like per market or per type of like property if you're going to pursue a rental arbitrage strategy versus purchasing in that area?
It's like a reflection of rent versus the revenue you can make if you're looking
Mm,
at rental arbitrage. And then when we buy, there's an additional like regulatory component that we look at
mm,
because as the rules change, I'm going to buy a property, assuming I can do Airbnb for 30 years, and then it changes 2 years down the line, then I'm in trouble.
mm.
So, and then, obviously we'll look at what we're paying on down payment, what's the cash on cash, what's the return on equity, um, with those factors. So it's a longer process when we buy, but when we find a good market that we like, we'll definitely we want to scale there. That's why we bought 6 in the Smoky Mountains National Park in Tennessee, which we really like the market.
And like, what are you looking for from a regulatory perspective if you are going to make a purchase? Like, what do you want to see?
And I want to see we want to see two things. Right? We want to see an area that has a history of short-term rentals or overnight rentals, depending on kind of what it's called. So we want a place where like this is an already established part of the economy, and that a place where tourism is a predominant part of the local economy, right? So we want to make sure that if there's no tourism, there's no Airbnb, people don't eat
Mm,
because that will protect us ultimately from onerous rule changes, right? If they're going to kill their own goose, right? So if you're in a market where 100% of the economy is based on tourism and a lot of it's based on Airbnbs, they're going to be very supportive of Airbnbs because that's ultimately what's going to drive tax revenue, jobs, right, property appreciation, and that's when you're going to be the most protected.
mm. Gotcha. And then those arbitrage units, you're okay with a little less certainty and regulation in those markets, or what are you looking at some regulation there, or like how are you approaching those?
Yeah, we would definitely want some regulation. You don't want no regulation because that's just a free for all, and then so supply is unconstrained. So you want somewhere where there's like, kind of smart regulation, or at least
Mm,
regulations that you understand and you can take advantage of.
mm,
Um, So we like regulation actually because what it does is it constrains supply, right? We don't want a ton of people coming in, and that kind of screws up your market. And for arbitrage, it's definitely it's definitely probably the hardest, I would say, because in order to make money, you need a lot of them, and then so you really got to get the market right, right, and you got to get the building right because that really ultimately drives like how scalable that business is and how profitable that business is.
mm.
Um, And I think that's where there's definitely an opportunity set there that we like, especially as multifamily rents start coming down. I think that spread is more and more in favor of people that understand the arbitrage model. And so we're excited. We're really excited about 2024. We think there's a lot of opportunity.
And like, is there a specific return that you're looking for from an arbitrage property, or how are you deciding? Hey, this is a deal. Let's do
High, high, high,
it.
high, as high as possible. Um, Look, I mean, in arbitrage, there's a 1% rule in long term rentals, which is probably a little antiquated at now. But there's like I subscribe to like a 2x rule in
Mm,
arbitrage, right? So if your rent's $1,000, you should be making $2,000 of revenue per month, right? If
mm.
you kind of hit that rule, like you're generally be fine. If you do north of that, you'll be do great. If you do south of that, you're gonna be a little more pain. Um, so that's where we underwrite. We want to make sure we kind of are at or north of that threshold, and then so my landlords aren't hearing me right now. Like our margins are healthy enough where we're very good tenants to potential landlords, and that we always pay our rent.
Sure. Yeah, that's important, right?
It's important to business relationship exactly.
Yeah.
Look in houses, right? Like houses are just a little different. We don't arbitrage houses, but people do, and they can be successful. We like buying houses, and ultimately we think like buying is the path to long term wealth. So very much focused on buying. Especially there's obviously tax advantages, and and appreciation associated with buying versus renting.
Yeah. And you guys manage your own properties, or you have a team internally who does, which is different than some other people do. Like, why did you guys decide to go that route versus hiring a third party property
Well, that's where you come into play, my friend. So Mike is very kind and generous, and I'm going to share like two stories about Mike that everyone should hear. So Mike was there in the beginning when my wife and I started. We didn't know what we were doing. We would go to his meetups in New York City, and we actually met people there that we were still friends with that have are still doing Airbnbs, and that's been great. And thank you for that. That's where we met Sayed. Mike and Syed has led me to like other business opportunities. So, shout out to you on that. It's been really, really helpful. But to your question about like managing ourselves, we always kind of manage ourselves when we were getting burnt out and we didn't know how to hire VAs. And
management?
Mike put together this really great blog post that I still like we basically use still now. I mean, we added on our own things there, but Mike developed like kind of a methodology and how he would uh, how one should vet and recruit global talent, and that was our first step to actually building teams remotely that now run our entire business, run all of our businesses, and can they run our personal life too. So all my VAs, they do everything. They manage almost every part of my life. Um, so shout out to all of them there. Anyone listening there, you guys are great. And then the other story I want to talk about, Mike, is how you've been like. It's something like I talked to other people and they still talk about you. They're like, oh yeah, Mike, yeah, Mike was really helpful and this, that, and the other. Your name still comes up like 6 years later, just to kind of tell you the impact that you've had on folks in short-term rentals and in New York. So I know you're in Jacksonville right now, but you're loved and missed in New York.
Thanks, man.
You're welcome.
So you guys have managed to have all these VAs running the majority of your business. I think offline you said you kind of the short term rental business, you spend like an hour a day on it. Like, what would be if someone wanted to start going that route? Let's just say they have like five short term rentals and they're kind of starting to get to the point where they're pulling their hair out between the guest communication and pricing and all the stuff that goes into it, right? Like, who would you suggest? Like, what role do they try to hand off and hire first if they're going
The
to hire
customer
them?
service part, right? I think that's the easiest one to do. You can hire global talent at a competitive rate, and they can handle all the. And you have to get train them, right? But they can handle at least initially the guest communications, right? Your communications with your cleaners, and then maintenance issues, right? I think that's kind of the core. You can kind of those are pretty kind of easy to knock out, and then if that person is you have a good working relationship with that person, then you can grow on to other parts of your business. But it's always kind of recommend people to do that in the beginning. Just the things that like they're very going to be much better than you at doing, right? Because if you're an entrepreneur, you're running around doing a bunch of different things, like you just can't. I think one, like you're not going to be as fast on the app as they are if they're sitting in front of a computer. And two is like you're not in the right mindset, right? You're like problem solving something, and then a guest comes and asks you like, "Where's the Wi-Fi?" You're kind of annoyed actually, like, "Dude, I sent it to you like 10 times," right? And you probably won't give the real like good customer service answer that you'd want to give because they're paying you money to stay at your place, right? So you want someone that actually is like there in the right mindset, is trained to do that, that can provide the service level, and then that's going to reflect well in your reviews, and just generate goodwill for your business that they'll refer someone to come to your property thereafter.
Yeah, that's a good point. And for the changing economic environment that we're in, right? People always say that travel is one of the first things that takes a hit because, frankly, in a lot of cases, maybe it's a luxury. What have you seen on that side in the short-term rental market?
Um, things have gone. Things are better for us, and I think when I speak with my peers too. I think Q4 this year is up versus Q4 last year. So um, I think things are going well, right? If you are operating your properties professionally, what I mean by that is you know, the right pricing, you have a real customer service organization, it's decorated properly, you're maintaining your units, right? Like you should be making money, right? But if you're not doing it professionally, if you're kind of, you know, if you maybe aren't making money and then you're not really reinvesting your property, you're not providing good service. I think some of those people are struggling. So I think,
Yeah,
you know, a lot of the Airbnb bus meme hosts complaining about not getting bookings. They a little bit like a little bit of self reflection, look in the mirror, like what can you be doing better?
mhm,
Because if you're in the top 80% of properties generally, and you're in a decent market, you should be getting booked, right?
yeah,
It's the lower 20% that are like getting hurt because they're taking photos with iPhones, they're going to IKEA or Home Goods. Like
mm,
it's just not a recipe for success.
yeah. And then, have you guys changed anything? Let's call it in the last 12 months. I mean, I'm sure you're constantly evolving, but anything like specifically that's been able to help you guys not, stand out and continue to bring in revenue even better than last year?
I think design more and more is a big component. I think you could have, you know, I think someone said, you know, you could have put a porta potty on Airbnb post COVID and you would have still made money. Those days are gone. You know, demand isn't what it was. So, and just there's more professionalism in the space. So I think design is one of those things that's really going to set you apart versus it kind of like it's the low hanging fruit that's going to set you apart. So if you're an Airbnb host that is, you know, wants to up level their game, their property, design is the first part. That is the first step, and I think the lowest hanging fruit that you can knock out pretty easily and see some immediate return on your investment.
Mm. And are you like hiring like an interior designer to help with that, or is that something that you guys have also decided to handle internally
Yeah, we have that in house.
in house? Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha. And then I'm assuming you just have people who help you set this stuff up because it's the most aggravating thing ever.
Said overtime.
I said, I'm sure you have people who help you like actually set up the furniture and do the stuff
Oh
for you.
yeah, yeah. We're not doing that. We finally graduated from doing that.
Horrible.
Whew. Yeah, those are the days, man. I remember those days, man. Oh, the long nights. Your hands hurt from opening boxes, and man, I remember before like not having an actual toolkit and like just like Allen wrenching furniture myself, screwing furniture yourself. So yeah, people think this is all like, you know, it's all just kind of happens. There's a lot of hard work that goes into it. So
Yeah.
no, yeah, I mean, so I have a lot of sympathy for hosts that, you know, there's some hosts, yeah, they just maybe they overpaid or in a bad market didn't do the work. I have a lot of sympathy for those people because I know how much work and blood, sweat, and tears, and more importantly, dreams. Like someone's dream of building their own business or creating wealth for their family and is in a property. So I don't take it like lightly when people struggle or ask for help. I also try to help them because I remember in the beginning, like when it was hard for us, and like you were there, like you were generous with your time when I had questions for you when you were, you know, when you were still in the business and um, you know, the technology stuff and operational stuff. So I always remember how helpful that was to me. I was trying to pay it forward to people that you know, kind of need help now because I remember the stakes and it's just like, yeah, you can help someone, you know, be happier, like help them with their family or, you know, makes more money to help their family. Like I think, you know, we all should pay it forward.
Yeah. And like you mentioned the technology side there, and I've been out of it for a bit. Like, what are the new things that you guys are using on the technology side to bring in more revenue or to increase your level of customer
Well, just
service?
crazy thing called TikTok. Heard of that? No, there's the. I mean, look, I would say like, you know, like being able to promote your properties on social media is actually like a huge thing. We partner with an influencer who focuses just on our market, um, and she's been wonderful in helping us drive traffic to our our properties, and we obviously we help her as well too. But um, you know, marketing through social media, you know, I think the nuts and bolts have gotten a lot better too. There's just a lot more software available than what it was. You probably had to build some of that stuff yourself. Um, what was your company? What was the company called? Like High something?
Howard.
High Howard. Yeah, High Howard. Um, yeah, I mean, the off-the-shelf technology is actually quite good now with Price Labs, and if you use guest or host away, remote lock, like all the nuts and bolts are all there. You have to
Mm.
kind of put it together and optimize it for your use case. But I don't think there's a lot of like technology differentiation. Actually, I think it's really just like design, you're in the right market, operations,
Yeah.
um, accounting, just like the real like nuts and bolts of business,
Yeah.
which I fortunately am very good at. So I like my odds against the typical operator, let's say.
Are you guys focused on driving? I know, like for a long time when I was in the business, like this topic of direct booking was like a hot thing. Is that something that you guys focus on, or you don't worry about that much anymore?
It's still it's a very kind of top it's a very hot topic now too. Mike, you should have started a direct booking technology company. There's a company called Boostly, Mark Simpson. They're doing very, very well. So
Huh,
yeah, check out Boostly. They're doing very well. And they build websites for 5K
nice.
uh, overseas or with global talent. So it's not bad. Um, it's not a bad business. So to say. Yeah, no, we do. Like, we very early on collect guests' contact info from 2019, I think. So we have good database. We figured out a few hacks along the way to get all the contact information from like everyone that stays there, and then and then just like push them to our direct booking site. I mean, I would say like we're in Philadelphia, so it's just not that much repeat business. So it's just not
Mm,
as much. But we're like 5-7% direct right now, which for urban market, probably okay. I mean, I've seen, without putting any marketing dollars behind it besides a, you know, MailChimp account. So
yeah.
yeah, I feel like we're doing pretty good. And we have a direct booking site just through our PMS system. So it's pretty tight. It doesn't fail. We don't have to manage it.
What's what are some of those tips for people to collect guest information so that they can put it in a database?
Oh, Michael. I can't share my secrets. All right, for you, I will. For you. So like an easy way to do is everyone needs Wi-Fi, right? So go on Canva, print out a QR code that goes to like a form, right? That basically asks for them to fill in their contact information so you can stay in touch with them, right? And then and then have the Wi-Fi information there, right? Have Wi-Fi, and then hey, 5% off your next day. Just put in your information here,
Yeah.
and you'll get everyone's contact information. There's no third-party software needed.
Huh. So like they have the Wi-Fi info. It doesn't force them to do it to get the password, but it's just kind of generally
Not
encouraged.
forced, right? It's they just because one you don't want to force them because they'd be like, what the hell, right? So it's
Yeah.
there, right? It's just like here, hey, here's the Wi-Fi. Oh, fill in your information because we send free tips and whatever freebie you want to give,
Yeah.
and then easy
Cool.
peasy.
What else have you guys tried to do to get guest contact information?
On our next episode, Michael, I'll share another secret with you. If you feel good enough to invite me again, I'll share another tip with
Oh,
you.
come on.
I mean, what's another one? I mean, look, I think a lot of it's just like you have signage in your units that say, "Hey, this is my," if you enjoyed your stay, like
Yeah.
this is our website. You don't have to go through Airbnb, Booking.com, Verbo, Expedia. Like, just book with us directly if you'd like to stay. It's right here, right? So you don't need a fancy website to do that, right? You've already sold them, right? They're already in your property. You've sold them, so that trust factor is already built there. That's where Airbnb is strong, right? They have that trust factor there, but they already know you, right?
Mm,
It's on your thing. All they need is somewhere to book. Like they know what property they're booking. There's a calendar that's updated, and there's payment information. Your chargeback should be very low because it's like somewhat in the network already. So it works really well. And then the nice part is it's very low overhead. You don't have to do anything, right? If it's integrated in PMS, there's no You don't have to like do plugins or like write code between one website and another, right? So it's all kind of integrated within one platform. And if you kind of do it the way that I described it, all you need to do is pay for Mailchimp, Typeform, maybe Canva. It's very cheap software. Put something together. It's really, really easy. You don't have to pay for StayFi. You don't do any of that. You don't need any hardware, any of that crap. So
Yeah.
just try to do things. Yeah, I think taking a page from your ingenuity, Michael. So just like trying to figure out ways to, you know, optimize our return on our capital and our time.
Yeah. And you said in an urban market, 5 to 7% is pretty good. Are you seeing like a difference in repeat guests, direct bookings, like in your Smoky Mountains properties versus like your Philadelphia? Or
Um, we, I actually don't know. I haven't looked at. I haven't just because it's probably not that many, so I haven't looked actually. I don't know the breakdown between the two.
yeah,
So
okay,
I can't actually say actually.
fair enough. Yeah.
Not sure.
And then like everyone says like Airbnb, right? And I'm assuming for people who don't know about this, you guys are on like a lot of different channels.
Yeah, we're on as many OTAs as we can get on.
Yeah.
You want to be as broadly distributed as possible.
Yeah. What's working well for you guys these days in the different markets?
Um, I mean, Airbnb continues to be really, really strong. Booking.com is. I mean, they're all strong, right? They're getting a lot of marketing dollars behind. Booking.com, I think, is better and better. We're getting more and more business from them. Yeah, even in like where it was traditionally kind of an urban European type customer, it's a lot more here U.S. We see them in Tennessee.
Hmm.
VRBO, Expedia, obviously Airbnb, Google Travel's big. Marriott Homes, Hilton has a new product, has a new home share product. American Express is rolling something out.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a lot going on.
Yeah, you mentioned that. I remember Marriott was coming out with that just as I was kind of exiting the business. So, like, is that something you get approved with them, and then they kind of book your place, or like, how do you integrate with like Marriott?
You need like 50 listings to. We don't. We're not on there. We can't. We're not big
Yeah,
enough yet. But you need 50 listings to get on there. I think they. I don't know the exact process, but I know folks that have it, and it's worked pretty well for them. I think you're just integrate it within their rewards program, so your stuff comes up in their inventory, and then I don't know the back end, but it's a nice distribution channel for folks.
for sure. Okay, and like, kind of back to like sourcing the properties and sourcing deals, like how are you guys figuring out? Let's just start with market. How are you figuring out first, besides the regulatory piece, what markets that you wanted to be in?
Um, yeah, we do a lot of research. We do a lot of analytical research. I use AirDNA, like just go and like just really. There's a lot of data there. You just kind of parse through the data, see
Mhm.
like what we know works, and just look for patterns in different markets that fit that. And then, yeah, I think that's where at a very high level, kind of how we do the research. So kind of know what works, and then we
Mhm.
just try to like see, we see the same patterns in different markets.
And then as you're kind of like zeroing down, like how are you picking like a neighborhood or like a type of product, for example, like a single family versus a multifamily? Like how are you deciding what is the best product that you want to rather arbitrage or own in that market?
Um, I mean, I think the data is good enough where like you can go and see like what particularly works well. I mean, obviously like what your budget is and everything to like what actually works well in those markets.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, like do 3 bedrooms, 4 bedrooms work out? Like what area you want to be? Is it a unique property? A lot of different factors of how but I think a lot of it's just like the data, like just finding good comps, right? And then like taking your subject property and kind of doing the work to see what makes sense and what doesn't.
Yeah. And, I know that like small things can make a difference, right? I had John on the show too, and he was kind of talking about his methodology behind some stuff. What are some examples of things that you've noticed maybe in the Smoky Mountains that are like big value adds that you feel drive a lot of revenue for those listening?
Yeah, I mean, there it's like proximity to like Dollywood is big, right? At least in kind of the part that I'm in. You want closer to Dollywood, you do better.
Mm,
Um, bigger, better, bigger.
Mm.
Indoor pools.
You have indoor pools? You play it?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's dude. It's game is very different from even like 4 or 5 years ago. It's really evolved. All that Florida Kissimmee stuff is like migrated to other markets. It's it's like an arms race. A lot of these places now.
Wow. Okay. And then, um, so you're looking at those things, and then but you've got obviously team distributed around the world, but you're also building out local teams in these areas. Like, and you guys are not in either Philadelphia or Smoky Mountains, obviously. How do you
Yeah.
go about finding the right people to do the on the ground stuff for your property?
Um. I mean, a lot of like I think Facebook groups are a great place to start. I think really just like when we started the business, we looked for people that were like trustworthy, like people that we want to work with, and just like we're using the same cleaners that when we first started in Philly, like the same people.
Wow.
They've grown their business now too. Um, yeah, we just want to find people that they may not be the cheapest, but they're honest and reliable, right? Because cleaning is not like we're not going to Mars. You're not hiring someone to go to Mars, right? You're hiring someone that's going to show up on time, do a good job, communicate with you. So like we just look for those traits where like you know we want to build that relationship with them, give them more business, give them consistent business. There's a lot of things too, right? Just like it's a positive feedback loop, right? If you have a successful property, successful portfolio in like a concentrated area, right? You can give them consistent work, right? If you're booking out 7, 8, 9 times a month, right? You have like 10 units in a place. That's 70 turns, right? That's distributed, but it's in one place, so they know like, okay, I can hire teams against that. I can build a business around that. So you get, you get some vendor lock in with them on your side and their side, and it works out pretty well.
Yeah.
But I think finding people that you can tell pretty quickly if someone's going to like be a long term partner for you or not.
Sure.
Especially in
And
this, it's really not too hard to find.
how are you guys handling? Like, I remember always one of our struggles was like, right, I just call it running supplies, right? It's like consumables. Like, is that something that you put on the cleaners? Is that centrally located? I just remember as we scaled, that became like a bigger and bigger problem to try to figure out. I don't think we ever
Yeah,
nailed it, but
we always find wherever we kind of scale in a location, we always make sure we have storage on site there, so we make sure we have a place where we can put everything. But now, like I mean, I think back before when you were in the business versus now, like just Instacart, Uber Eats. Like if you need something like short, fast, Postmates, just I mean, you can go to Walmart and you can get someone delivered something in like 2 hours now. So the technology is just that much better now. You just pay someone $25 to drop off some toilet paper. It's no big deal.
right. Okay, that's a good point.
Yeah, just drop it off in the front desk and then just go get it. It's pretty easy.
And then the cleaner brings it up to the property or
No,
the
just tell the guests to come down and grab it.
yeah. Okay. Huh. Um, and then like, what are the other just like pitfalls you see of people who? Let's talk about people who are like trying to scale a business, right? I feel like one's easy, two's easy, three's pretty easy. You start to get to like 7, 8, 9, 10 units. You start to run into some problems. Like, what are the problems
Yeah.
you see people running into at that point, and how do they overcome them?
I think one is like not two things, right? One is like technology. They haven't invested in, and it's hard, right? You can run a couple of units just on an app, Airbnb app, or you can, run multiple apps and kind of run around with your hair on fire. But like you have to kind of actually be good with technology, like, or
Mm.
be at least competent how to hook up a property management system, right? And how to get all that to work. So I think when you scale, you need technology to help you automate tasks and be more efficient. And second is kind of the earlier point I was talking about with global talent. Like you need global talent. You need,
Mm.
U.S. talent is just too expensive, given the margins in the business. Like you have to hire global talent that you can recruit and train and pay and motivate. Right. I think that's a lot of people struggle with that. Right. It's easy to get one person. Right. But we have 4 VAs that run the Airbnb business. Operationally, we have a bookkeeper, right? And then probably like 10 people on the education on the personal branding business. I probably run like, and then we have our team, we have, you know, cleaners, handymen, like there's a lot of people, there's a lot of, so how do you organize all that into, how do you organize all that, right? How do you track that? How do you recruit them? How do you pay them? How do you make sure they're doing a good job? How do you keep them happy? Right. And that's where like gets difficult. Right. And I think that's just, I'm looking at it from, 30 units, but when we first started, right, you just start with one and then you build some confidence, you build some procedures, and then you get the next one, you get the next one.
Yeah.
Yeah. That first hire is the most important, making sure that, because that person trains everyone. That person is you and that person become the DNA of the organization. Like that's the culture, right? And I think that's where another thing too, right? Just the culture of an organization. Like we're very like, from me on down, it's like we don't wait. There's no waste. We don't minimize waste, right? Just like we don't. Nothing's wasted. We don't like if it's a cancellation fee, we should get it, right? If it's an air cover claim, we should get it. If the water bill's too high, then we send someone to go and check the toilet, right? If the you know yeah, so we don't so that ethos goes down in an organization, right? Like we don't allow, like if we don't allow people to take our margin away from us. Maybe to put it that way. Like we very much protect our margins because that's how my people get paid. That's how we get paid.
Yeah, for sure. And then, like a common worry, like in the short-term rental business, is screening, right? Like, how have you guys reduced as much as possible incidents that happen at the property because of guests and parties and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I mean the simple answer is price, right? Have a quality property, right? That you don't have to like uh, cut down so low that you get the problems. People that want problems, or people that are problematic, are usually the ones that pay the least. So just make sure you have a quality property you can reinvest in. Price is the best screen. I'd say that's the biggest lesson. And that's the easiest thing that you can do. Just high quality property, run it well, maintain it, so you can always get booked at good prices, and then you won't have problems.
Yeah. What's the minimum threshold that you guys look for in terms of like your average daily rate to not have problems?
Depends on the market.
Have a
Depends on the
market.
market. Yeah, I mean, yeah, Philly's different from Tennessee, but we want to make it. I mean, we never want to be in a position where we're losing money on a reservation, right? So we always make sure we're covering our fixed costs. So
If you like,
and
meaning like down on per day basis, for example.
yeah, like we know what that's what the accounting comes into. Like we know what we know what we spend per unit. So if
Yeah.
we're not going to take business that we're losing money on, if that makes sense, or we're taking too much risks.
Yeah.
Because you got to manage those building relationships. You don't want problems that affect buildings. You don't want to burden your staff with bad guests that like suck up a lot of oxygen or damage your place, right? So, but you still want you want consistent bookings, right? Because you want your cleaners to have, and that's and it all kind of see they all kind of works together, right? Like you want consistent cleaning, so your cleaners like are invested in you and like do a good job to show up on time, right? Because they want your business. Because like you're probably one of the few people that like can offer them 8 turns a month in a unit, right? That they can turn in like probably an hour and a half, and they're making $80. Like they're pretty happy with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why they're still here.
Cool. So I know like you guys have spent the last year putting a lot of time and energy into growing your social media. So it's in conjunction with short-term rentals. But I feel like that's something we should touch on. Like, why did you guys decide to go that route, and like, how has it affected your business?
We we started kind of being more public about our journey about May of last year. So it's probably like a year and a half. So we really just kind of started posting about what we've done with our business, how we've grown it, and we've done it in a way where we've shown it in a way, through our lens as a married couple, my wife and I, Liz, my wife and I, we grew the business together, um, and doing it in a very sustainable way. So
Mm.
we didn't grow the fastest, right? Because we didn't grow a ton during 2022 because rents were just ridiculously high, and we bought instead because there was just cheap financing. So that made sense. And now as we flip in 2024, where housing prices are very high, interest rates are very high, but rents have come down materially. There's a lot of rental arbitrage opportunities that we really like. So just being able to navigate that. So we want to kind of share that journey on social media because we want to kind of show people that like, this is something that's possible. That it's not about Lamborghinis and Rolexes, right? It's like, hey, you can build a business to support you and your family, to go buy real estate, to do things in a conservative, consistent way to build net worth and build cash flow for yourself. And we thought it was an important message that we wanted to share versus some of the other things we were seeing on social media. We thought it wasn't portraying the situation accurately, and people weren't teaching people the right way to doing it, right? So I was like, okay, well, if people are trying to teach, if someone's going to learn, they should at least learn it the proper way, at least in my opinion, right? um, versus someone that is not as experienced as us. We've done this for 6 years, right? I've been in investment banking for 10 years. I have my degree I went to school, right? Like I know how to, like we do things in a way that um, is durable, right? And that's a message I wanted to kind of share. Like do things in a durable way. We've been doing it for 6 years. We have two kids. Like we both work on this full time. Like this has to be durable. I can't have it go like this, right? Like that's not volatility my family and I want. So yeah, maybe the highs aren't as high, but the lows aren't going to be as low, right? When you got
Yeah,
young children, like you don't really want to subject them to like a roller coaster financial journey.
sure. What are some things that you guys have put in place in order to keep the business like durable and consistent that you see other people like just not doing?
I think just taking like not swinging for the fences. Like we don't take on like I don't want to be convinced of a deal. Like it should that the data it should like work. I don't want to stretch for something, right? If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. I don't I'm not trying to like, oh, these three things have to happen for this to like make sense for me. Like I don't want to do that, right? It's like, okay, this makes sense. Okay.
Yeah,
Obviously there's risks in everything, right? But I want to make sure I'm taking like smart risks, right? So I think that's probably the biggest excuse me, the biggest thing that makes our business durable is that we're conservative in our underwrites. We know when we get into something like it generally will perform within a certain range.
yeah, I like that. Yeah, a friend of mine likes to say, "I try not to make deals work because that's when you get into trouble."
Yeah, you get yourself in trouble by just stretching a bunch of different assumptions just to get something to pencil, right? And that's one of the pitfalls of being a real estate investor. You can kind of feel like you have to be buying, you have to be doing something. When the
Mm.
right decision is to do something, is to like not buy the deal. Is to just like, okay, underwrite the deal. Like, okay, it doesn't work, right? But you feel like, especially when you have a fund or your capital, you feel like you have to be doing something. I think it's absolutely the wrong mentality. I think that's why building another business for us, building the social media business, has been so helpful because one, it generates an uncorrelated stream of income that's not related to the Airbnb business, but or directly related to the performance of the Airbnb business, but it talks about the journey. But secondly, when things aren't as busy on the Airbnb side, we're not feeling like we have to go buy deals or do ground up development or do all this kind of crazy stuff, right? We can orient our energies like where we have better options. So I think that's where that durability comes from, like having multiple uncorrelated streams of income, and also just not, especially in real estate, just not forcing yourself to do a deal in order to do a deal.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, especially right now.
Especially right now. Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, Jesus. Or before, like even a year ago, right? Like, oh, like who buys deals at four cap, right? A lot of
No,
people.
man.
Yeah, and like no unhedged like interest rates and like just all this crazy stuff that happened before. Like, tide's coming out, right? So
Yeah. Well, we're getting
a lot of
close to the end.
a lot of
Oh,
naked people.
yeah, we're
Yeah.
getting close to the end here, and there's always two questions I like to ask at the end. The first one is, I'm sure you have some stories here, which is, what is the craziest or most uncomfortable situation you've ever experienced in a real estate deal?
No, so, you know, you it would you would think I would tell like a Airbnb story, but actually like it's actually when we first started buying, we were in Philly and we were looking at these like honestly kind of crack houses. Like they're like 50 grand. You put in, tear everything down, put 50 in, and then it goes like 130. We were just starting. We didn't know what we were doing. I remember walking in one and like it was like gross, man. It was like you walk in, there were like four people living there. And literally like cockroaches on the wall running around. Like it was like just you could smell the human. You could smell like human waste. Like it was just gross. And I remember walking. Liz and I walked in there, and then that was when we were like, "What the hell? Like, what are we? Like, what are we doing? Like, no, like never again. Or like this is not what we're gonna do." It was
Yeah,
very visceral. I was like, dude, like, there's this is not our like. And I know everyone starts in like the $50,000 houses in the real estate game, and it was like, and then we walked in. I was like, not doing this. Like, let's figure out something else. Like
yeah,
we're both smart people. Let's figure out something else. I remember that. I was like, oh man, like so that my real estate journey. I remember that very, very viscerally. I was like, I'm not walking with my wife in one of these places ever again in my entire life.
yeah,
But there's plenty of money to be made there, right? Like your friend Ungod, right? Like he has like what 300 of these in New York, right? So
yeah,
God bless him. Um, yeah. So that was. I don't think I ever told that story actually, but like I don't know why it came up now, but I remember that now. Maybe it was because yeah, when you and I before we're talking about other potential business models.
yeah. Maybe try to block it out of your mind.
Yeah.
Cool. So the last and final question I always have is, if you could go back in time, uh, back to when you were looking for your first deal or your first short term rental deal, you can give yourself one piece of advice. Knowing what you know now, what would you tell yourself?
Oh, I tell myself. Man, I would have told myself to buy way more in 2021.
That's a good piece of
Oh
advice.
man, I didn't buy it. I didn't buy enough. I only bought three. I didn't buy. I should have bought everything. I should have bought. I should not have been. Yeah, I was too conservative. Like I remember. I look back in the underwriting work we did. We're like walking away for 25% cash on cash deals. We're like, oh, it's not high enough because the first one was so great. We were like, it was like crazy good. And then it was like 25%. Like, why would we do this? It doesn't make any sense. Oh God, I would do 25. Yeah, I would do those every day and every day now, every day and Sunday now. Yeah, I would have been. I guess like kind of broader lesson, just be like when you find something that really works, like just be aggressive, like and like don't get anchored in like something that worked really, really well, and then like you gotta hit that grand slam every single time, right? Like had I bought like four more of those 25% deals, like I'd be, you know, my net worth would be better.
Yeah.
But we're like it's just a lesson. I think we all learn. I think this is where the durability part comes in too, right? Like you just
Mhm.
play the game long enough so you can actually learn the lessons and then effectuate the lessons in the next cycle. So I've learned this now. So next time I know it won't be the exact same thing that'll happen, but like something similar. It's like I have the pattern recognition, like, oh, okay. Well, I didn't execute well in 2021 cycle, the 2027 cycle. I will, lean in when I see a similar situation.
Yeah, that's a good piece of advice. Um, well, people want to reach out to you after the show, whether they have questions, they want to check out some of your content that you put on social media. How can they go about reaching out to you guys or finding you online?
Yeah, I'm active on Instagram, so just look for Michael Chang BNB MichaelChang BNB. I also have a podcast. It's called STR Like the Best. STR Like the Best. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and we talk with leading short-term rental investors and operators. So if you're interested in short-term rentals and want to hear stories of how people that are successful in the space, how they think about their business, how they started, how they operate, feel free to check out the podcast.
Cool. Well, awesome, man. Well, thanks for being on the show. This is great.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Mike. Thanks for having me.